So when it comes to let me go back to the other so again, this is Lowe's and Home Depot. And the first question that I'm trying to get at is, how does the PE of these two companies, which I'll call the home improvement industry, compare to the S&P? So I've got here the recorded PE of the S&P, I've got it for Lowe's, and I've got it for Home Depot. Okay? Now, these two years here, the year ending in December of 02 and the year ending in December of 08. December 02 is a crash year. December 08 is a crash year. So these numbers spiked up here. And remember what I said about sometimes you look at data and you say, that data is an anomaly, I'm just going to throw it out. So I threw out those two numbers. I'm not even going to take them into consideration when I look at averages. So really what I'm going to focus on is this period between the crash years and this period since the crash. And if you look at how this industry traded, this is Home Depot and Lowe's, okay? For these years, the average PE of the industry was always about 10% less than the average PE of the market. Why? Because home improvement is not as sexy as technology and things like that. Okay, it made sense that it was less, that it consistently traded below. If you look here though, it's consistently trading at a higher PE than the market. And you ask, well, why is that? If it was lower at one point, why is it higher now? Well, remember there are two things that are going on here, growth and risk. And when people get scared to death, they run away from risky companies and they run to companies that they see are safer. And retail in general is considered safer than technology and a whole host of things. So if you still want to be in the stock market, but you want to be away from risky things, you get into things that are safe. And in the course of doing that, you push up the valuation. Okay? So that seems to be what was going on here. The industry here was focused, I mean, the PE was more driven by growth here, low growth, low PE, and it's driven more by fear here, low risk, high PE. So, and this is going to be, I bet you, I haven't seen the numbers, but I bet you Kohl's and Target are going to look exactly the same way as these two. Okay? And the question is, going forward, do you think the industry is going to have a PE that looks like that, or a PE that looks like that? Any ideas? Ask yourself first, why is it different? What happened to the general environment that made it different? We went from an environment where people were comfortable to an environment where people are scared to death. So if I ask you, what do you think is going to be like in the future? The first question you've got to ask yourself is, what do I think the general environment is going to be like? Is it going to be an environment where people are continue to be scared to death? Or will they start to get more comfortable? If they get more comfortable, they're going to be inclined to take their money out of the safe stocks and put it into go-go kinds of stocks. So, what do you think? There's no answer here. This is just...
I think they're going to do the same. They're going to go back to being comfortable and then go to the robo stocks.
Okay, so you think the environment is getting better in a way that people are going to be less concerned about the whole world going to hell again?
Yeah, because as it gets better, people always do the same thing. It's like a cycle, just again and again and again. It happens every 5 to 10 years. It goes up and then it goes back down.
Okay, but if you actually go out and you read different reports on consumer confidence, right now consumer confidence continues to be quite low. Does that change your point of view?
I think because we're growing at kind of at a low level, getting out of the recession and all. I think as unemployment goes down and the economy gets back on track, I would say in a few more years, 4 or 5 years, I think it's going to go back to being confident again.
Okay. Does anybody else have a different thought? This is the kind of thing that you should be discussing as a group. What kind of environment are we? Remember, it's not the past that counts. It's what's going to happen here. Yeah, go ahead.
I have something similar. I think it's probably between, because as you said, there's still consumer confidence that's low, but over time people start to kind of get comfortable with that sort of environment, and then as time goes, they get more confident, and slowly the numbers go back down to the low numbers.
Okay. I happen to think that's probably what will happen too. But as you do any of this stuff, one thing that you've got, how many of you played poker? The trick to poker is you can be a really, really, really good poker player. You understand the odds, you understand people, you understand how people react, and you can still lose. Okay? Sometimes the cards just go the other way. I was watching the finals of the WTP last night, and there was a pro against an amateur, and the pro kept making the right bets and he kept losing. In the end, he won. But all you can do in poker and all you can do in this, really it's all you can do, and you've got to keep this in mind. All you can do is try to improve your chances of winning. You can't get yourself in a position where you're going to win. All you can do is improve your chances of winning. Okay? So that's why these discussions are good, and then if some crazy thing happens, you've just got to adjust. Yeah?
Do you personally think like investing is gambling?
It depends whether you call poker gambling.
I mean, personally, would you use
I think playing craps or roulette is gambling, and I don't play craps and roulette. I think playing poker is understanding people, and I'm very good at understanding people. I want to play games where I know the odds are not stacked against me. And it might be that I don't know the people I'm playing with as well as they can figure out me. But investing is sort of the same way. You've got to really understand the odds to play poker, but you've also got to understand people. In investing, you've really got to understand all the technical stuff, which helps you understand the odds. But then something else comes in, and it really has to do with understanding the whole environment and playing it then. By the way, anybody who's in this business, if they're not a purely passive investor, refers to the positions that they take as bets. So maybe that answers your question. And it drives clients crazy and you've got to learn not to use that word in front of clients. We took the following bets, and the clients go absolutely bonkers. Okay, so you get the sort of idea here, what you're trying to do. Then for the individual companies, you can do the same thing. And you can see here, I did this relative to the S&P rather than relative to the industry. In the other spreadsheet, I did it relative to the industry. It doesn't matter, it's just you start from a different place. If you look at Home Depot relative to the S&P, I don't know what's worse, watching it when it's squiggling all over the place or watching it when it's off. If you look at Home Depot relative to the S&P, it was always about 10% less. The S&P was 90, the industry was 90% to the market. Home Depot is 80% to the market, so it's 10% cheaper than the industry, okay? Whereas if you look at Lowe's, it was basically 7 to 10% higher than the industry. Now, if you know the history of those two companies, Home Depot was sort of the big boy on the block and sort of was the giant to be killed. And Lowe's sort of came out of left field at a time when the creators of Home Depot were stepping aside. They were retiring, and new management came in, and new management basically screwed up the company royally. And the management was ultimately fired, and because the CEO did such a good job, he was made the president of Chrysler, and we know how that one turned out. But anyway, so people were no longer enamored with this one. But Lowe's, which sort of started out as a little company that had come out of bankruptcy, started to eat this guy's lunch, and so people started to become fascinated with Lowe's. Okay, so you can see that people were willing to pay more for Lowe's than they were for Home Depot. Remember, PE is how much you'll pay for $1 of a company's earnings. The more you're willing to pay, the higher the PE. That's what PE is, how much you're willing to pay. Now, if you come down here, you'll see that they basically trade the same way. Home Depot, Lowe's, what's the difference? And in part that reflects the fact that these guys started to turn around, and it reflects the fact that these guys started to get themselves into a little bit of a jam. Okay? So here what was interesting is we want to be in something safe, and it's sort of like take your pick, I don't care. Whereas here, it's I'd rather be in something else, but if I've got to be in something, I'd rather be in Lowe's because it's the faster growing, the stronger one. Okay? So this, the industry relative to the S&P is what we call an industry premium or discount, and the companies relative to the industry is what we call an industry premium or discount. And I can ask the same question, what do I think these numbers are going to look like going forward? And I haven't had you ask, read any of the annual report for Lowe's and Home Depot, but looking at what's going on, I would suggest to you that probably this is going to trade at a slightly higher premium than that. Because Lowe's right now is in the middle of the turnaround. Basically, they built too many stores. And some of the stores aren't very profitable. So now they're in the process of cutting back the number of stores. And management has said it's basically going to take us 3 years before we start getting back to where we want to be. So for a period of time, management has sort of told you, chill out, it's going to be tough. So that's how you start thinking about this problem of PE. And this is really, 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 really hard to wrap your head around.